of South Africa, but it is also home to the headquarters of the Africa Disability Alliance, which is one of the influential technical agencies that promotes the rights of people with disabilities in the continent. Today we go into the life of its CEO and meet some of the people that make up the team.
Here is an organization that manages to create consensus and agreement among the 55 African countries. So it's an extraordinary story by all means.
Hello, my name is Bule Mulebatsi. Welcome to Stories Untold. Welcome to Pretoria. Kudakwashe Dube is simply known as AK, but his job is anything but simple. His organization has worked on achieving a common continent-wide agreement on creating positive disability laws. But before we find out how that was achieved, let's learn more about the man himself.
Andrew Kudakwashe Dube is on guard at the Africa Disability Alliance, the continent's most influential coalition of organizations promoting and defending disability rights. It is an agency working with the African Union and has its headquarters in Pretoria and an office in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Its CEO has made South Africa his home for the past 25 years and describes himself as a proud South African.
I was born in Harare, at Nkomo Barracks, just outside of Harare. My father was a soldier at the time in the military of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland, and I grew up in Zimbabwe and went to school in Zimbabwe, but I came to South Africa in 1994 to work with the disability sector here, to try and help them to prepare for the changes that were happening in the country at the time.
Not long after settling in South Africa, tragedy struck back home in Zimbabwe. AK, as he is commonly known, lost both his parents, and as the eldest child in the family, he had to honor his responsibilities despite having a physical disability.
I'm the oldest child in our family. I have three brothers and one sister who is now late, and of course the extended family is very large. But as the firstborn child, I had the responsibility of making sure that the whole family is taken care of, like all firstborn children do. Yeah, so those were some of the things that characterized the early part of my life, taking care of myself, but also of the larger extended family.
Fortunately for him, his parents had bestowed upon him great lessons in life. For instance, his father, who was a soldier, had enforced strict military discipline at home. This taught AK to be resilient and not wallow in self-pity, especially as polio had forever changed the way he would live his life.
It depends on who you ask. The stories that I was with my maternal grandmother when I started falling sick at their farm and I was taken to hospital. Of course, everybody else thought it was polio. My father thought it was witchcraft, that it was witchcraft which had caused my disability. And my friends, my academic friends now speculate that it may well have been insecticides or some pesticides that were used on farms during that period. But whatever it wasn't a good experience for me. Hence, you can see what you call disability, but what I call the signatures of my struggle at that early age of about 2 years.
Contracting polio as a child is bad enough on its own, but AK was dealt a double blow. He was also struck with measles soon after and had to fight for his life in intensive care. His disability raised many questions.
Part of the reason that is confusing with the definition of my disability is that apparently polio strikes one side. But in my case, it affected my right hand as you can see, and my left leg. So it's kind of like a cross.
But his resilience once again got him through school and immigrating to South Africa. This is where he would begin building his own family.
My wife is Patricia Karabo Dube. She's from Lesotho. And my firstborn child is Fadzai Dube. My son is Ignatius Zingrai Dube. And Shamiso Michel Dube comes, the late Shamiso Michel Dube comes after Ignatius. And my last born child is Daniel Tumela Dube.
Sadly, in 2002, death once again visited AK's family. This time it robbed him of one of his children.
My child, Shamiso Michel Dube, drowned in the swimming pool at the age of 15 months. It was, of course, it changed our lives completely. Everything that happened after that moment meant that we had to move into the direction which ultimately takes us to where we are today. So it was difficult to lose a child, and you feel that a part of your heart has been ripped off. And initially, when the child was, before she was buried, we had a lot of prayers from the community. That helped a lot because there were many people that were taking turns to come and pray for us. So that really helped us to manage and cope. Some of those prayers, I can still hear them today.
Prayers alone were not enough, as AK soon found himself in a dark state of mind.
Over the years, I actually struggled with depression, and then until when we were celebrating the fact that she would have been 17 years old, today she would have been 19 years old. But about 2 years ago, I then decided to say, look, we don't have to forget a child when a child dies, because the child was probably meant to leave a short message to all of us, and then the soul went back to the source. So we decided to establish the Shamiso Michel Dube Foundation, which will be working with children in schools, providing scholarships, bursaries, and support to the families of those children. So when I retire from the Africa Disability Alliance, one of my hopes is that I will add that to my to-do list to make sure that the soul of Shamiso Michel Dube is able to touch onto the other children.
Yeah. His firstborn child, Fadzai, was old enough to have an inkling of the family mood at the time.
We were aware after my sister's passing that, there was a bit of sadness in the home, but it didn't really affect us directly because we were still young and, we were still enjoying life. And as much as Shamiso's passing was very difficult for us, we were able to overcome it as a family.
We do get depressed, and particularly not because of family, like if you lose a child, just generally the amount of the purpose that you are here to serve is such a huge purpose, and sometimes you do get in and out of depression just because you are working on your purpose. The fact that you are disabled, it doesn't mean that your purpose has anything to do with disability. It may well be that your purpose is in another area, but we all have purposes, and we pursue those purposes actively during our lifetimes.
I always fly.
On Network, we lead Africa's tech conversation.
There is more disadvantages to controlling social media than there is good.
Social media is used as a powerful tool to get the message across.
We have the Internet of Things, wearable devices, and 5G technology.
We've started a rent renewal program. We in essence is readying the infrastructure for 5G.
I wanted to get a drone license because I've always loved aviation.
Join me, Phumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. right here on Network with your technology and social media news.
Hi, I'm Nana. For the past few months, Tandega and I have been on your screens debunking an array of issues relating to the economy.
South Africa and Eskom are heavily over-dependent on coal, and it places South Africa at risk, especially in a world that is experiencing climate change.
I always have to warn you that in economics, as in all life, we have to stick to interpreting credible information and data and not making too many glib generalizations.
I'm not surprised that Chris is taking this line. Firstly, to present himself now as the spokesperson of the Tripartite Alliance.
That is not true.
I didn't interfere with you.
Join Tandega and I on Economics Unbound, Thursdays at 9 p.m.
Welcome back. You are still watching Stories Untold. Behind me are the gates of the Africa Disability Alliance. The men and women who work here help open up opportunities for people all across the continent. Now that we know a little about its CEO, AK, let's find out what it is that he does here.
These premises are actually the headquarters of the Africa Disability Alliance, ADA. And we were formed in 2003, hosted by the South African government, and then we were based in Cape Town, and we came up to Pretoria in 2011 and established this premise as our headquarters. We are a coalition of international organizations. When we started in 2003, we wanted the whole of Africa to ratify the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. That was successful. Only 3 countries have not ratified in Africa, but the majority of African countries have now ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities.
AK believes South Africa is on a good path.
South Africa we have made very good progress here in South Africa. You may recall that people with disabilities here started preparing for democracy before 1994. But after 1994, we then started working with the new government, with the new democratic government, to make sure that all the policies that we had, which were coming through, were disability friendly. So essentially what that meant was we had to locate a team in Parliament in Cape Town to ensure that all the bills that were coming through, and that all parliamentarians, if they wanted research around disability, that they were supported. So that resulted in the positive policy architecture that we have now.
Ghana and Rwanda are also mentioned among the countries doing well, but some of our neighboring countries have their unique challenges.
Countries like Mozambique and Angola and Zimbabwe, they went through wars. And interestingly, we were able to make use of the lessons that we learned from those countries to try and prepare South Africa to avoid the mistakes that were done during the liberation struggle. And during the wars, of course, there were a lot of disabilities that were created. And then post-liberation, there was a very slow start. Although Zimbabwe had one of the first disability legislation in the world, but its implementation has not been consistent.
Among the team at the Africa Disability Alliance, ADA, is Margaret Zulu. She is the Director of International Relations. She paints a hopeful picture of her home country.
I know that Zambia is considering signing the Africa Disability Protocol towards ratification. I also know that the First Lady of Zambia is actually our patron for the Rights and Alliance project. We also have a federation in Zambia that brings together persons, organizations of persons with disabilities, and ensures and monitors progress towards implementation of the needs and rights of persons with disabilities. So there is progress also in my own country.
Susan Gersey is ADA's Goodwill Ambassador. Her priority is ensuring that persons with disabilities can earn a living and live in good health.
It's all very well to draft legislation. What do you do then? So my role has broadened now to look at how do we then go out and create economic reality for people with disabilities. We've been speaking to a group in this country, in South Africa, that manufactures the wheelchairs. So rather than relying on foreign exchange and products from overseas, is to be able to manufacture here. We are talking with them and it is achievable. So I believe that during next year we will start to see that roll out. But it's not enough to just make wheelchairs for disabled people. How do they become involved in a business making wheelchairs? Or crutches, or walking aids, or prosthetic limbs. Because at the moment the suppliers are all dominated by well-abled bodied people, where it's almost like dictated to the people who are disabled what they can and cannot have access to. So they need to come into the system where they would be able to advise and to participate in making equipment for disabled people.
One cannot help but be inspired by the efforts of the people who help run the Africa Disability Alliance. People of different backgrounds, nationalities and abilities, helping to balance out the disparities that exist in our communities.
The Africa Disability Alliance is a special organization to me because, you know, here is an organization that manages to create consensus and agreement among the 55 African countries in Africa that they need to work together and harmonize disability laws and policies. So essentially, that work that we did has saved Africa centuries of negotiations, of debate that it would have taken our continent to come to that kind of a consensus. So it's an extraordinary story by all means.
And police officer Stefano Fisafi was fatally stabbed to death. Community of Rosedale at Uppington has vowed to remove all drug dealers from their town.
We are against drugs. There's a war against drugs in the Northern Cape. Community members also came to this house behind me. Police again tried to intervene, and in the process of rescuing the occupants, they found massive amounts of drugs.
If you sell drugs, please close shop, leave Uppington. That is the message that the community are sending today. Because you are killing the generation that needs to lead and take South Africa forward.
This is where we take a look inside the world of media, analysing the trends, the issues and the reporting of some of the week's top stories.
One of the things that we are seeing across the globe, people are consuming news and living their lives with their mobile devices.
The evolution of journalism is to use the same skills, the same ethics, the same values, but to cater to different audiences because it's not the same people.
There is a lot of debate in this industry today whether the future is about digital paid content. Will there be a market for users to pay for digital content? And we see that in Africa it's a challenge.
People will go, pay for a newspaper, take it away. Why won't they pay for it online?
In the initial stages of shifting from print to online, we created the impression that what people were paying for was the paper. And so people are very reluctant to pay for the journalism, and good journalism is very expensive.
Watch Media Monitor Sundays at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to Stories Untold. People find inspiration from many different ways and places, but for AK, he finds it in nature, and the results of that have had a positive impact all across Africa, as he now explains.
Around the world, the ficus tree is a symbol of different things to different people. Peace and abundance, unity, purity, holiness, cheerfulness, and new beginnings. For AK Dube, it brings inspiration.
I really like living in nature and working within nature. Even at the farm, I used to go and do my reading and my writing under trees. So when I came here, the first thing that attracted me most was this ficus tree. And little did I know that we would do a lot of amazing work just right here.
Working under the ficus tree has also brought him and the Africa Disability Alliance much success.
A lot of very good strategies, because my work is to write strategies and to write strategies for government, for civil society organizations and so on, were done under this tree. There were about just as an example, two large African strategies. Their collective budget, I would say, was 5.2 million euro. That was done here under this tree. And then we had the Africa Disability Protocol. A lot of writing and research was done under this tree. And then we had the Model Disability Law, which was passed recently. This tree has also a lot to do with it. So it's a sport which is so calming, and when you come and sit under the tree, you feel like you are in nature and you are able to write, you are able to read, to do your research. Very, very good.
Interestingly, it is also under this tree that AK keeps his body in shape.
There is a tree here that I use to exercise my neck muscles. And I guess when passers-by see me, they think that I'm committing suicide on my tree. But it's actually very, very good, because when I'm exercising on that tree, I can go up to 1,000 body strokes. So that's quite a heavy workout. It's equivalent to you walking, doing the walking exercises. I've never been a fan of going to gym. I've always thought that you can look around you, you can lift a brick, you can lift your body, use your body as weights, and you can also use the trees to exercise different parts of your body that you would otherwise not be able to exercise.
The tree is also a great meeting spot for the family. For his son, he can always pop by for dad to update him on the work schedule.
I am Mr. AK Dube's second born and his personal assistant. Basically, we travel throughout Africa and parts of Europe, and just attending different meetings, and the whole process of being in a different culture and environment has really enhanced my perspective of not only the world but myself as well. So I'm forever grateful for that opportunity. It's inspiring, really. I think to see what he does in different climates, in rural areas, developed countries, really gives you a lot of energy. He's a genuine person, I think. He's as raw and natural as they come. He's passionate about what he does. He's true to his word. He's disciplined.
My dad is amazing. He really is. He puts everybody else's needs first before his own, And he's just the type of person who's always very supportive. I remember telling him that I wanted to be a writer, and the first thing he was saying is, how can I help you? How can we make this goal a reality? And that's just how he is. Very optimistic, very happy, friendly, easy to talk to, and yeah, that's my dad.
He didn't say you're wasting time with writing, you don't write books in South Africa?
No. Actually, growing up, he was always telling me that I'm, smart. I must be a confident young woman in the world, and I must pursue my interests. And not every father would say that, especially in the artistic disciplines. Most dads would be like, "No, why don't you do like accounting or something like that?" But my dad was always very supportive of my dreams. Wherever I wanted to go, he was always there, and that's what makes him an incredible father.
And the kids have a special message for Dad.
We're all in this together. That we're a team, and we support each other. We're there for each other, and long may that continue.
I just want him to know that he has done a great job raising me and my brothers, and that we support him in whatever direction he chooses to go, and that we love him very much.
And that is the untold story of Andrew Kudakwashe Dube, an incredible father and a man championing disability rights across our continent.
The message is, let's use the policies. Let us use the legislation that is there. Even if it might not appear to be the best legislation around, let's use it. Let us test it so that we can see whether it works for us. And then that way, I think we can then start improving our lives.
And on that enlightened note, that's where we leave AK's story and Pretoria. Remember, you can find us on YouTube searching for Stories Untold SABC, or alternatively, you can tag us on social media using the same name. Thank you so much for watching us today from myself, Puleng Mulebati, and the rest of the Stories Untold team. Goodbye.